Hey there, welcome to today's tutorial where we're going to find out how to use the SearchDelegate class, which is a class that essentially helps you implement a search function into your Flutter apps. This emulator already has the final version, and what you see here is a list of Californian cities, and essentially when we hit the search button, a list of suggestions pops up, which is a list of the most popular California towns so that not all of them show up. Essentially the idea here would be your user has to pick a city and he can look over all of them, or he can just hit the search button. And this is the list of the most popular cities. However, as he types in, you can see that, let me just hit the space, it starts to decrease. However, this is just the popular ones. If you want to see the whole list, you click the search button, and here they are, all the ones that have San with its name. Then you select it, and you come back, and this is the selected town. This is essentially what we're going to do. So if you want to learn how to do this, just watch the video. So here we are, and the first thing I'm going to do is turn off the banner because we're going to have a button right there. So now that that's taken care of, let's see what we've got here. First we have this empty string, selected place, and this is just a variable that's going to get the selected place, much like its name says, and then here, depending on where it's empty or not, we show the container that will show that information. And other than that, we have an outline button, icon, which is this right here for the search, and we also have a list view builder to show this humongous list of cities. As you can see, all California places. So these are all of the California cities or towns. It's a huge list. And then below this list right here, we have the popular California places. And these are just the most well-known ones, at least the ones I've heard of. But yeah, that's pretty much it. We have like a suggestion list and then the real full list. If you do not know how the list view.builder works, you can just click on the video on the top right. Essentially, this is the full list of California places that we're showing, and we're doing it with list tile, and the text within the title of the list tile is exactly the name pertaining to the index. And so we're showing this list right here. So in your project, just make sure you have a button to search. As you can see, this one has the icon and it says search, and it's a little bit styled, but the on press is empty, and then you have to show the list. Or maybe you don't want to show the list here and you just want to show it on the next screen. It's up to you. What matters is that you understand that the list that will be shown on the next screen will be the suggestion list. But anyway, the first thing you want to do is create a new Dart file, like so, and I'm going to call this search locations. And here I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to call it, you guessed it, search locations. And I'm going to extend the SearchDelegate class. And by the way, once I press enter, it imports the material.dart automatically, because that's the library where this class comes from. If you hit Control Q, you'll see that it takes a type as well, and it can be any type. In this example, it's going to be a string. Then you just open the class. And this is also the type that the abstract class of SearchDelegate will return in the end of everything. And now, as you can see, this already has an error. And if you hold the mouse over it, it says missing concrete implementations of 4 different methods. All you gotta do, at least in Android Studio, is either click here or just do Alt-Shift-Enter while holding that. And now we have all of the different methods that were not implemented and they are implemented. However, the way that they're implemented is essentially they just throw an error. That's it. That's all that they're doing. So that's definitely not what we want. In fact, it says right here, we gotta implement the methods. So let's do that in order. First of all, we've got the build actions method. You can always use Control Q or just hold the mouse and it will tell you a little bit about it. So essentially, build actions is the button that the user will have to clear the search string. Imagine he wanted to type in Los Angeles, but instead he typed in BNMWL, whatever. If he hits the clear button, it'll just clear the string and he can retype everything from the beginning. However, it says it returns a type of list widget. So what we're going to do is literally just return a list with a single widget. And why not just make it an icon button for simplicity's sakes? Let's just give it the clear icon. Now the on pressed is actually quite simple. The only thing we want is for the current search field to be cleared. And fortunately, this class right here gives you something called query, which is literally the value of the search box. So all you gotta do is say query equals empty string and it will clear it. So this right here has already been taken care of. Now this here, once again, Control Q, and it tells you that the point of this will be to return to the previous page. But when you want to return, you also want to bring over the selected search results, because that's good user experience. And as you can see, a widget is what you need to return. But for now, let's just return the button. Let's make another icon button again. Let's do icons.clear. And I just realized this was not what I meant. What I meant was arrow back. And for now, I'm going to leave this empty and I'll come back to it in a little bit. But at least the button is there. Now, these two methods are the most important ones. So essentially what I need you to understand is that this will build the list of all the results that the user can find. And this will only show the suggestions list. And you'll see how it works in just a second. But before we implement anything, we need to add the constructor right here. I'm going to give it long names so it's less confusing, but you can name it whatever you want. Final all California places. And I forgot to specify the type. Here we go. And then the same thing here for the suggestions. I'm just going to call it California places suggestions. And then the constructor. I'm going to use a named constructor to keep it more obvious, like so. Now that this has been taken care of, we can use these values right here and actually make something out of them. So first, let's take care of the build results. This is the list of all the cities and towns, and in this file, it's called all California places. We're going to use this right here, and we're going to use a method called .where, and this method will return everything in the list that matches what you put in here as true. And instead of element, I'm going to call it California place because it's only one element. And what we want to return are the California places that contain a certain string. However, to make sure this works, first we do .to lowercase. We want to turn everything into lowercase to make sure it matches. Otherwise, it would be a mess. And within the contains, what we're going to use is the same thing we used up there, which is the query. Remember, the query is what the user will place into the search box. So we're going to do .to lowercase as well to make sure they match. Let me just fix this a little bit, just so it's more readable. I'm going to hit the save button, and like this is probably easier for you to understand. Basically, we're taking the list, and remember, this is an element of the list of all California places. So in any of the elements that contains the same query as the user put in, that's what will be returned. So if I put in San, it will return all of the elements that say San. Now, a very important detail is that this method returns an iterable. And what we want is a list. So we got to do toList just to make sure that this is a list, because we're going to store this in a list variable of type string. We're going to call this all locations. What we're storing here are the results of the search from the user. That's it. So now that we have that information in a variable, we can finally return the widget right here. And the widget that we're going to return is, you guessed it, a list view.builder again. And the first thing I'm going to do is use the item count and give it all locations.length. And then the item builder takes a function, which takes a context and an index. And we're going to return a list style. In this list style, the title will be all locations. And then we access the index, like so. There are other ways to do it. For example, if you didn't want to use toList, you could remove this. You could also not specify the type. And then here, instead of this, you would do .at element index. This would work too. But to be honest, looking at it like this versus like this, I prefer like this, but it's up to you. So this is almost done. We're going to come back here in the future, but for now, let's go on to the build suggestions method. And we can literally just copy this and paste it, and then adapt the list to the suggestions list. So first of all, let's call it something different. Let's call it location suggestions, and then change it all here. And instead of all California places, what we want is the California places suggestion. And just so it's not confusing, let's call this place suggestion. And that's pretty much it. What matters is that we already have the constructor right here. And now that we've done this, we can come back here. We're going to go to the on press of this button right here that right now doesn't do anything. And in here, you're going to use a function called showSearch. And if you click on this function, you will see that it belongs to the search.dart file. And that's exactly where the SearchDelegate comes from, the search.dart file. So this method is part of the family, you could say, of SearchDelegate. Anyway, this context is the context right here, but the delegate is the class that we created. As you already know, this is the class name right here. I'm going to copy it, paste it. This is what we want, but of course we need to import it. I just did Alt-Enter and imported it. It's right here. And now here we need to send over the list information for the all California places. All you gotta do is scroll down to the list, and it's called all California places as well. But to make sure you don't confuse them, let's call them locations in this file and places in the search file. Locations. And by the way, the reason I placed the lists outside of the class was just so I wouldn't have to scroll down all the way every time I came to this file. But if you want to place it right here, that would have been fine as well. It would have worked all the same. But coming back here again, Here we're going to give it the all California locations, and then in California places suggestion, we're going to give it the popular California locations. I'm going to hit save just so you can see what's going on. So don't get confused, this is essentially the class we just created, and we're giving it this information right here. That's literally everything that's happening. So now we can already access the next page, and I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to click here, and this is the next page. And I just realized I made a mistake. Turns out I was right the first time. This was clear here, and this is arrow back. Sorry about that. I'm going to hit save, and now that's better. So as you can see, this is the new page. And if you have your theme well defined, as you can see I don't, I just have a primary color. But if you have your theme well defined, then the colors will follow your theme. But the functionality isn't there yet, okay? If I search for San Diego, for example, it will show only the San options. As you can see, they all have it. Even Thousand Oaks has San. If I do a space, then the list gets even shorter. However, this is just the suggestion list. If you want to see the full list, you gotta press the search button, and here it is, all of the matches with our query right here, which is a San with a space. And then you would click, and that would select, and you would go to the previous page, and that would find what we needed. But as you can see, the only thing that works is this right here. Other than that, nothing works. So let's implement the on taps. So first, let's implement the on pressed of the arrow to go back. So to help us do that, fortunately, once again, SearchDelegate has its own function, and it's the close method right here, and it takes two parameters, which is the context and the result. So the context, you just literally do context, and the result, in our case, it's the query. That's all you need, and now you can officially go back. So what we want to do now is to make sure that the user can click one of the suggestions, and as he clicks the suggestion, you already come back. That's what we want to implement right now. And all we gotta do for that is literally just copy this, go over to the build suggestions method, and fortunately the list style has an on tap property, so let's take advantage of that and put this in right here. However, this just makes the user go back a page. What we need to do is make sure that the query becomes the same as the tapped element. And all we gotta do for that is literally copy this and place it here. So now I'm gonna hit the save button, and I'm going to search, and remember, this first list that shows up is the suggestion list. As you can see, it's much shorter than the original one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Burbank, and as I click Burbank, the query will become Burbank, and we will go back. In fact, let me go ahead and print the query right here. I'm going to tap Burbank, and as you can see, it prints Burbank, and we go back. So now let's go ahead and do the same thing, but in the build results method. Same thing on tap, just paste, and obviously instead of that, it's this. And now we have the search functionality unlocked, okay? We hit the search button. Once again, I'm going to use San, I'm going to use the space. And this is still the suggestions list, aka the most popular towns list. And we already saw that that works. So I'm going to hit the search button right here, so we get the full list. And I'm going to click San Clemente, and we're going to go back once again. It's working, but we still need to show the selected town right here. So coming back to home.dart, how do we get the result when we come back? Well, if you come to showSearch and hit Ctrl Q, you will see that it returns a future. So what we need to do is turn this onPressed function into an async method. So all you need to do is create a variable and store this here. And surely you remember that we created the selected place variable exactly for this. So we just need to do this right here and await the result. And this would work. However, we need the UI to update. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create a new variable here, final result, and then still within the onPressed method, I'm going to say that selected place is equal to final result, but I'm going to wrap this in a set state method. Otherwise the UI would not update and we would not see the selected city right here. So now we can say everything is officially done and it will work. I'm going to hit the search button. I'm going to use Los Angeles in this example. Remember, I haven't pressed this button, so this is the suggested list. This is the most popular locations list. I'm going to hit it, we go back, and Los Angeles has been selected right here. Now let's do the same thing, except without the suggestion list. So let's just say San with a space, and as you can see, very few suggestions right here. But if I hit the button, all the suggestions show up. And I'm going to pick San Bernardino, and boom, San Bernardino, which I'm sure is a very nice place to visit. Well, that's about it. As you can see, we have a working system. You know, we can type in whatever we want, we can clear it, we can just go back. And as you can see, thanks to the logic that we implemented, if we go back with an empty string, then this becomes an empty string, and then this does not run, it's just an empty container. So we need to come here And literally we can just pick right here Beverly Hills and it will update. Everything works perfectly fine. So I hope this was able to help you in your app. If you found any value at all in this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to keep on learning Flutter, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. This is Flutter Mentor and out.